All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our roundtable today. So, we're going to be having a discussion about the ongoing violence in Manipur. Just to set up some context, ethnic violence has plunged Manipur into what may be called a state of civil war right now, as the two largest groups, the majority Meitei and the minority Kuki, are battling over land and influence. A shocking video emerged of an attack in May when two Kuki women were paraded naked by Meitei men shortly after their village was razed. And it was a horrific use of terror against women in the region. And post that incident, at least 130 people have been killed and 400 wounded in the violence that began in Manipur in May. And more than 60,000 people have been forced from their homes as the army and the paramilitary forces and police struggle to quell the violence. Um, Police armories have been looted, hundreds of churches and more than a dozen temples ruined, and villages destroyed. I'm pretty sure all of us here in the roundtable recognize the importance and the significance of addressing these complexities and challenges that have led to this current situation in Manipur. And yeah, I think to kick things off, let's start discussing and understanding the root causes that have led to this situation. So, what do you guys think are the historical, social, economic, and political factors that have contributed to the ongoing state of violence in Manipur? Yeah, Tejas. Go ahead.
Yeah. So to give a background of what ha what has led to this situation, so Manipur is divided into two essentially, the valley region and the hills region. The valley in the center is populated by the Meitei population, which forms the majority of the state and is predominantly Hindu, while the surrounding hills are populated by the majority Christian Kuki tribe. This Kuki tribe also shares a lot of similarities with the uh, neighboring tribes of Myanmar, who have also been coming in as refugees ever since the Myanmar coup, and that has also been a cause of the clashes happening in the present day. So there has always been a tension between the dominant Meitei community because of them having all the resources and political power in the valley, while the Kukis remain disadvantaged in the hills. And the Kukis, meanwhile, have scheduled tribe status and are also thus protected and also enjoy certain benefits, such as under the Manipur Land Revenue and Land Reforms Act, which basically prohibits the transfer of the tribal land to non-tribals. So Kuki land is now protected, and the Métis majority and dominant community cannot essentially lay their hands on that land. However, the dominant group has been trying to get a hold of it through this new new way because of illegal immigrants coming in from Myanmar, and they essentially state that these tribals are illegal immigrants, and we shall evict them. However, there have been accusations from and there have been accusations from the Kuki tribe saying that they weren't actually illegal refugees from Myanmar and they were Indians only. So that is a point of contention over land. And some people have also given it a religious angle to it, given that the majority is Hindu and Meitei population is Hindu versus the surrounding hill being populated by a Christian minority. And especially the Kukis, have also been openly blaming the current chief minister of BJP, the N. Biren Singh, because of um, because of the voter base largely being Meitei for the BJP. And these clashes started on 3rd May after the demand for scheduled tribe status from the Métis in order for them to get even more control over the minorities. Um, so that this demand was met by a sort of non-violent march from the Cookies called the Tribal Solidarity March. However, this march was then met by a counter blockade from the Métis, which then turned violent. And since then, there has been continuous violence across the state. And the pinnacle of it, the height of it actually, when more and more people got to know of it, was on July 19th when the infamous video of the two naked women came out. And it really sparked an outrage against the law enforcement agencies of the state.
Great. I think we have a pretty solid foundation of the ongoing conflict in Manipur, and we understand the background reasons for it. And I think now is a good place to jump into the current situation and challenges that are seen in Manipur. So let's have an overview of the current state of affairs in Manipur in terms of the violence, the conflict resolution efforts, and just in general, what is the impact on the local population, and what are the challenges faced by the authority in managing the situation and ensuring overall safety in the state in general? Yes, Arjun, go ahead.
Yeah, so as Tejas mentioned, Manipur has been embroiled in an ethnic conflict since early May, which is primarily fought between the majority Metis community and the minority Kuki tribe. Even as the violence has been escalating, the response from the central government has been notably muted. The government has been unable to bring the situation under control despite taking drastic measures. The state government has imposed the internet shutdown, imposed a curfew, and authorized all district magistrates to issue a shoot on site orders in extreme cases. The federal government has also dispatched some 50,000 security personnel, most of them from the other regions. It has also set up a unified command for the various security forces deployed in the state. However, even after these measures, we see that the violence continues to spread and force more villagers away from their home. So let's figure out what are the challenges that are faced by the government in the Manipur issue. First comes the state police, which, like the rest of the local administration, is overwhelmingly Metis and are alleged to have allowed the crowds to abscond with weapons such as assault rifles, long-range guns, and even mortars. In Kuki-dominated areas, Kuki police officers have allegedly done the same as well, however, on a much lesser scale. As of now, an estimated 4,000 weapons and 500,000 bullets have been stolen throughout the state, as a result of which both these tribes have an arsenal at their disposal, which has greatly escalated the intensity of the conflict. And also, despite a history of protest by women in this region, the armed forces found themselves unprepared to deal with the active participation of the federal government took what seemed to be a ameliorative measure, announcing the creation of uh, the committee made up of the CM, the elected representation, political party leaders, and the representatives from the Metis and the Kuki tribes for a peace dialogue. However, the initiative was an instant failure since both Metis and Kuku representatives refused to participate due to disagreements over the composition of the committee. Now, the thing is, had the Manipur government deployed sufficient forces on the day of the march at all sensitive locations along its route, it might have helped temper the initial outbreak of violence, since the most damage that occurred in the region occurred in the first 3 days, that is, in the first 72 hours, when 72 people were killed, of whom 60 were reportedly Kukis living in the valley, the Imphal Valley. Alternatively, New Delhi could have also opted to impose the president's rule, which would have allowed the central state to assume command over all security forces in the area and recover stolen weapons, which would have been a step that would have been in keeping with the tough image cultivated by the BJP and Modi's government. However, because of the run-up to 2024 national elections, the BJP appears reluctant to acknowledge its failures in Manipur and to risk losing the electoral support of the Meitei tribe, which is the majority in the Manipur region.
Yeah, so I think we now have a good idea of what the current government has been able to do or not do in Manipur so far. And I think we can now discuss what the general role of stakeholders, such as the local government, and extending to community leaders, NGOs, civil society, what do these stakeholders, what role do they play in addressing and resolving the violence that we see right now in Manipur? And also international communities, how can they contribute to promoting peace and bringing some sort of stability to the region? Yes, Samravani.
Hi, I hope I'm audible. Okay, yeah. The stakeholders, mainly in terms of the community, have been playing a very important role in the state of Manipur right now. Because initially, when we spoke about conflict resolution and peace building efforts, what happened was there was this model called the classic Dunantas model. And this paradigm, according to this paradigm, the communities or the local communities were mainly seen as passive agents. They were merely seen as victims. So what happened was that the majority of the role was assumed by NGOs, or the majority of the role was assumed by the international organizations. However, recently there has been a shift, and from the classic Dunantas model, there has been a shift to the new resilience model, according to which the local communities are best to understand what they are going through, because since they are living the situation, they know what's better for them, and they are the best to come up with community specific solutions, which otherwise other NGOs which are out of the state or out of the conflict ridden areas might not be able to do so, right? So this shift has been witnessed in the state of Manipur right now, because and there are some instances. So one of the instances is the white flag movement. So the white flag movement was witnessed in the state of in the district of Kakching, in one of the villages. So what happened was that all the houses in the village, in that specific village, they hoisted white flags, and the white flags were a symbol of reassurance and peace. And what happened was that for the few days in that particular district and in that particular village, any sort of violent incidents are not witnessed. So this was a sign of how the communities, they showed signs of reassurance, and they also acted towards that. And there's also this community called Meitei Pangal community, and they took out the torch rallies to show signs of reassurance and peace in the state. And they also called out the central government for not acting upon anything on the state. So this is how the communities have been, the local communities to be very particular, how they have been playing a very active role in the state. But at the same time, while they have been doing that, there is this lack of stability in the entire state. And that is where the role of international organizations come in, because 15 different organizations have asked for help to different organizations like Amnesty International, UNHRC, to name a few. So as Tejas mentioned, how it's not only restricted to the state, but how there are also certain disturbing relations between India and Myanmar. So that is where also the role of international organizations should come in. So yes.
Great, thanks, Samradhani. So I think we now have a clue about how local communities and international communities can play a larger role in helping out with the conflict in Manipur, and especially international communities. I think we really haven't seen a lot of that happen so far, and which brings us to sort of the concluding question over here about what are the strategies for conflict resolution and what is the future outlook for Manipur? What are some potential strategies that we can use and that can be adopted here? Aman, go for it.
So as all of you mentioned that how Manipur has been facing violence and insurgency for several decades now. It's not something which is new in Manipur. It has erupted recently though. And this sort of the violence is largely attributed to the demand for autonomy by various ethnic groups in the state. Definitely, that's what most of us covered. So now, if we talk about put some sort of potential strategies for conflict resolution that could be adopted in Manipur context, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is dialogue and negotiations. One of the most effective ways to end the violence in Manipur is through dialogue and negotiations. The government should engage with the various ethnic groups and listen to the demands. Listening does plays a vital role in this. A peaceful resolution can be reached through mutual understanding and compromise. And I think, anyways, India, when it comes to international relations, India has always taken the stance of dialogue and diplomacy. So when it's their own national matter, dialogue should always be the first priority. And I think recently, Mr. Amit Shah, our Home Minister, also voiced for the same thing, that the both the ethnic groups need to sit down and talk and to find a compromise as to how to go about in the future. So that's one way to go about, I think. And then another way could be strengthening law and order. The government should take strict actions against those who indulge in violence and lawlessness in the state. But I should point out that should not at all be at the cost of human rights violations. Not at all. The just cogence norms the international norms should not be violated at any point of time. Even if someone is being arrested, someone is being jailed up, they should be provided with all the procedures should be followed. Principles of natural justice must not be overlooked. But yeah, definitely strengthening law and order is one way ahead. Addressing the root cause of the issue can also be another way to this conflict resolution. I think the root cause of the violence in Manipur is the feeling of alienation among the various ethnic groups. So the government should address the historical as well as the cultural issues and promote a sense of inclusivity among the different ethnic groups. And I think it's once there is a sort of a peace, this could be done by education and awareness programs, employment opportunities. So that should be the future outlook. So when we talk about future outlook, it very much depends upon what sort of approach the government is taking now for the conflict resolution, because now a lot of things are at stake. And when I say a lot of things are at stake, I think Aryan mentioned about how the elections are like the general elections are coming up next year. So the government has a lot of things at stake. So even if not for the human rights violations, as it happens in politics, at least for the sake of electoral gains, the government should shift its focus towards something that is happening in Manipur. And yeah, I think there's a requirement of a multi-pronged approach that needs to be taken on an urgent basis for the government.
Great. I think, yeah, that's a great insight into how we can't take a polarized approach to a solution here, and we need to find a way to collaborate between the local community and the government to really reach a solution. And great, thank you. If anybody has any concluding remarks they want to say, they can go ahead. Otherwise, we're done. All right, great. Thank you for the great discussion. It was very insightful.
Thank you.
Thank you.